Today, we're going to talk about a massive societal shift that is quietly reshaping what it means to be a young adult in the modern world. It's happening in homes all across the country, maybe even in yours. So let's just dive right into the numbers.
So get this. As of July 2020, 52% of young adults in the US were living with their parents. We're talking more than half of everyone between the ages of 18 and 29.
And just to put that into perspective, that is the highest number we have seen since the Great Depression. Seriously, you'd have to go all the way back to the 1940 census to find anything like it. So this isn't just a small blip on the radar, it's a truly historic shift.
So, what used to be the exception for young Americans has now pretty clearly become the new rule. It's a new majority, and the story of how we ended up here is, well, it's fascinating. What's really wild is how fast this all happened. In February 2020, right before the pandemic really hit, that number was 47%. Just 5 months later, boom, it jumps to 52%. We're talking about an extra 2.6 million young adults moving back home in the blink of an eye. The pandemic was a huge catalyst, for sure.
But here's the thing. While the pandemic definitely slammed its foot on the gas, this trend is not some brand new phenomenon. It's actually the peak of something that's been building for decades.
You can really see the long game here in this chart. I mean, think about it. Back in 1968, the path forward was pretty clear for most people. 56% of young adults were married and living with their spouse. But as you scroll through the decades toward 2012, you see that number just plummet. And at the same time, the share of people living at home just keeps creeping up and up. It's like the whole script for young adulthood has been slowly rewritten. This timeline really spells it out, doesn't it? In 2007, before the Great Recession, about a third of young adults were at home. Then the recession hits, and by 2012, it's up to 36%. And then, of course, the pandemic pushes it way over that 50% line. You see the pattern, right? Every time there's a major economic shock, this number just keeps climbing.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the when. Now let's get into the why. What are the actual economic and social forces that are driving this massive change?
Well, when you really dig into the research, it seems to boil down to three big things that come up again and again. Let's break them down.
All right, first up, and this probably won't surprise you, is the job market. It's just a lot harder for young adults these days to get the kind of financial footing they need to live on their own.
And the numbers here, wow, they really paint a picture. Back in 2007, 70% of young adults had a job. Fast forward to 2012, after the recession, and that drops to 63%. And here's the kicker. If you're unemployed, you're way more likely to be living at home. It's a pretty powerful economic reality.
Okay, factor number 2 is a bit of a curveball, something you might not immediately think of. More and more people are going to college. So as college enrollment has gone up, so has the number of young adults technically living at home. Now, part of this is kind of a statistical quirk, right? The census actually counts students in college dorms as living at their parents' house. But it also just reflects the reality that tons of students live at home to save money while they're getting their degree. And the final piece of this puzzle is a huge social shift. We're just not getting married as young as we used to. Okay, check this out, because this is a wild. Back in the 50s, people were getting married for the first time in their early 20s. Today, it's much closer to 30. For generations, getting married was the big trigger, the main event that kicked off your independent life. But with that milestone happening 7 or 8 years later, well, the whole timeline for adulthood has been completely redrawn. So all this data points to these huge economic and social pressures, right? But behind those numbers are millions of real families just trying to figure this all out. And that brings up a really tough personal question. Where do you draw the line between providing a safety net and preventing your kid from actually growing up? And this is where it gets tricky. As one psychologist, Dr. Jeffrey Bernstein, puts it, that line can be incredibly thin. Parents with the best intentions can sometimes, without realizing it, hold their kids back. So what's the difference? Well, think of it this way. Helping is about empowerment. It's giving your adult child the tools and the support to figure things out for themselves. Enabling is more like rescuing. Sure, it solves the problem right now, but it might stop them from learning how to stand on their own 2 feet in the long run. So for parents who are in this boat, experts suggest a few things. First, be really clear about what support actually looks like. 2, it is okay to say no sometimes to protect your own well-being. 3, let them make their own mistakes. And finally, and this is so important, take care of yourself. It's all about shifting from being a rescuer to being more of a coach.
So when you step back and look at all of this, what does it really mean for the future? This isn't just some economic footnote. We might be witnessing a fundamental redefinition of what family roles look like, and the very path to adulthood itself.
Because here's the thing that's easy to miss in all the economic data. It's not always about financial struggle. Some research suggests that the old generation gap has really shrunk. A lot of today's young adults and their parents actually have a ton in common. They stay in touch by choice, and, they genuinely like hanging out with each other.
Which leaves us with this one big question to chew on. Are we moving away from that old kind of negative failure to launch idea? Maybe. For this new generation, living at home for a while isn't a sign of stalling out, but instead, it's a strategic and maybe even a normal step on a much longer, more complicated journey to independence.